Welcome to Management 1100. This video is going to summarize your Chapter 10 reading, which is on organizational change and innovation, where we're going to be looking at lifelong challenges for the exceptional manager. These are various issues and concerns, both internal and external, that as a manager you will face as your organization has to embrace change and has to find ways to be innovative and implement innovative ideas. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So by the end of chapter 10, you should be able to answer some of these major questions. And I'm just going to read a few of them, but what do you need to know to encourage innovation in the workplace? How are employees threatened by change, and how can you help them adjust? And since change is always with us, it's inevitable in every circumstance in our life as well as in business, what should you understand about change? There are various ways to deal with both change and innovation in the workplace. You have to allow room for failure. One thing that I make sure that I embed in the minds of my team members is that we are going to fail at some point in some way. You're going to fail at something. And it's not to be shunned, it's not to be fearful of, it's not to run away from, it's not to avoid. You have to allow room for failure. It's basically the phrase of, that setback is a setup for success. Your failure allows you to be able to reset, look and see what went wrong, and make it right. And the only way you can improve upon something is to fail at it. So you have to be able to allow room for that, and you have to have that embedded in the culture of your organization. If you have a no failure principle and no failure mindset, it will be disastrous when failure comes, because it's inevitable that you are going to fail at something. Something is going to fall short. So if you allow room for it, it makes change and the ability to innovate more feasible. You have to also be able to give one consistent explanation for the change. Why? Why are we changing? Why is it necessary that we change this? We've been doing it the same way for so long. So you have to be able to have this one consistent explanation that is the standing principle, the guiding light for change within your organization, and be able to look for various opportunities and unconventional ways that you can be able to implement change and innovation, and have the courage to follow your ideas. You have the ideas, whether they are derived from yourself or from other people. You have to be able to have the courage to push through and try it. If you fail, guess what? You just try something else, or you try it again, but you have to have the courage to do so. Now, what will be called upon internally of your team members, of yourself, of externally, of the marketplace, of customers, whomever? What will you have to deal with in order to handle the fundamental change? And so as the world becomes smaller, and what I mean by that is that we have this global marketplace. We are now connected through so many technologies that the way in which we used to communicate and do business 20, 30, 50, 75 years ago is non-existent. I mean, it's rare. So we now can reach people all over the world with, lightning speeds. We can now use web technologies and interfaces with our cameras and our laptops and our smartphones. And so the marketplace is becoming more segmented. And because it's segmenting, it's breaking up in clusters, it's moving toward more niche markets, meaning you'll have a market where it could just be for women, or it can be for the LGBTQ community, or it could be for, a Christian community, or It could be specific to some kind of sports fans. So there's so many different clusters now that it's not one big blanketed um, uh, customer base. So there are more competitors that are offering targeted products, which means that you have to be able to get to the marketplace much faster. And, it's not just a handful of competitors, it's, in the tens, in the hundreds that are offering the same kind of targeted products. And you know that you need to hurry and get your product in the hands of a consumer before your competitor. So you have some traditional companies that are going to struggle and they may not survive with this radical change of innovative ideas and concepts. And so traditional companies they need to either reimagine their structure and how they do business or face the consequences, which is ultimately being bought out and revamped or being closed and everyone going home saying, wow, remember when. So let's talk about the different types of innovation that enter a marketplace. We have disruptive innovation, which a lot of times some of you may have heard disruptive technologies as well. And this is where you have a product or a service that it's initially rooted in a really simple application and it starts at the very bottom of the marketplace, and then it just pushes and pushes and pushes like the little engine that could, and it moves up in the marketplace, eventually knocking out all of the competitors that have been in business for 10s, 20s, 100 years, right? And that's what disruptive is. It comes in, kicks in the door after, working its way up, the staircase, right? Up the ladder, and it comes in, it kicks in the door, and it just knocks the competition out. That's disruptive innovation. You can see disruptive innovation in so many different ways in both products and services if you really consider what you currently use for in your household, in the workplace, the technologies that you use both at home, in the workplace, that they just came out and just totally just knocked out their competition. And we have China, India, you have some other offshore suppliers that are changing the way we work worldwide. And you have to have knowledge, just not the information, but you have to have knowledge, right? Because information is literally just what we pull off, and I can just present a report to you or present you a bunch of things I printed off the internet, and that's information. But you have to take that information and you have to be able to dissect it, translate it, embed it, and know it. And you have to be able to have this knowledge to become competitive and to have a competitive advantage over other companies that are offering the same or similar product or service that you offer. So there's two types of change. We have our reactive change, and that is making changes in response to a problem or a response to an opportunity as those opportunities or problems pop up. So for instance, there may have been some kind of let's see, like a reactive change would be that I saw that they have these airbag vests for motorcycle riders. So bikers, the vest inflates so that when a biker falls off of their motorcycle, they're not then feeling the brunt of the impact of the asphalt or dirt or whatever surface that they're falling off. That can be a reactive change because it's in response to an opportunity to serve a group of people who desperately need it. It's also in response to problems, right? Because we have a lot of motorcyclists who are really injured or actually some succumb to their injuries due to different accidents. So that could be reactive change. And then proactive change is when you are putting out some careful thought into the changes and where you expect it to be, both with the problems and opportunities, where you think that it could have the greatest impact. And this is also called planned change because it is very detail oriented, it is very intentional, right? Now, there's some forces for change, both outside and inside of an organization, and we're going to look at both, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but you can see the slide, and you can also see that in your textbook on Figure 10.1. And outside of your organization, some different forces that can impact change would be your demographic characteristics, the demographics of your customers, of the workforce outside of your organization. So that could be gender and skill level and the age of those individuals. You have various technological advancements such as IT and the automation of your manufacturing. So things that used to just be by human hands, now a lot of things are being automated and making the manufacturing process much faster. You have shareholder, customer, and market changes. So you have mergers and acquisitions, right? We have companies that are merging together to be one large conglomerate. We also have companies that are being bought out from other companies. And a lot of times when they're bought out, you don't necessarily keep the same staff. Different things happen. We have social and political pressures. So you can have war. Anytime there's war, that is just an instant issue that because it impacts business. Anytime there's war anywhere in the world, that's going to impact business because if there's any kind of trade, commerce, that's going to impact business. And then of course leadership. Any kind of leadership changes that will impact what is happening in your organization. So us getting a new president, you having a new mayor in your city, a new governor, if there's any corruption in the offices of elected officials, that could impact. Now, internally, you have some HR concerns. You have productivity issues. People are just slacking on the job. You have employees who are dissatisfied with the job, with the workplace, with the leadership in the organization. Absenteeism and turnover, right? You have people that are just, not coming into work, and you have people that are quitting or being terminated. And then managers' behavior, how a manager deals with conflict and how they are as a leader, how they implement and or create and implement their reward systems. How are they rewarding other employees? Is it biased? Is it fair? And then, the structural organization and the manager's behavior towards that and how they see themselves in the pecking order and how they see their colleagues both at the same level as them and those that they, are that report up to them. And so both of these groups of forces blend into the need for change because they both impact the organization externally and internally. So here's just a close-up on those forces because the diagram sometimes is difficult for people to see. So here's just a zoomed in look at that. When we talk about our technological advancements, it's not just computer technology, right? Technology is any kind of machine or any process that enables you to have a competitive advantage in being able to change materials used to produce a finished product, especially if you can produce it faster. So it can be any kind of equipment or any way that you tweak or improve upon a process that allows you to get an edge on the competition. Now, here's a question for you. Tony, the owner of Soroti Pasta Restaurant on Cape Cod, is open during what is called the high season, which is May until October. He's always hired college students during summer vacation, and in recent years, the number of workers who quit mid-summer has significantly risen. And when he's asked, they say they're quitting because they have enough money or they want the time off. This is probably an example of what kind of change. Would that be market change, social or political change, economic change, or would that be technological change? I'll let you ponder that for a moment, right? He's open during high season, which is May through October. He hires college students who are on summer vacation. So they're usually on vacation May through August. Some of them are quitting midsummer. So that means some of them are probably quitting around July. And these numbers keep increasing. So when he asks them why in the world they're quitting, they keep saying they have enough money or they want the time off. They just want to be able to enjoy their summer break. So is this a market change, a social or political change, an economic change, or a technological change? The correct answer can be found on page 311 in your textbook. And you'll be able to get the answer to that there. All right. Now, forces originating inside the organization. I mentioned this earlier, your HR concerns, your manager's behavior. A lot of people don't put enough weight on managers' behavior, and they really need to, because managers can help to make or break an organization. So when we look at the three kinds of change, we have the least threatening, and we have a somewhat threatening, and then we have the doozy. So the least threatening is our adaptive change. That's when you're going to reintroduce a familiar practice back into the organization. Something that's somewhat threatening is your innovative change, and that's when a new practice is being introduced to the organization. That's the one where people get a little nervous because they're like, oh, I don't know. See, the adaptive change, we've done it before in the past, so all we're doing is bringing it back. Okay, I can do that. But you're now trying to bring something new in. I'm kind of nervous. I like the old way. Why are we doing it? Oh my goodness. But here's the one that really causes the most grief. Here's the one where you have to really, if you don't have a strong foundation in your organization, if you don't have strong leadership, if you don't have strong employee buy-in where there's a strong level and a high level of trust and respect, this is where you can have some of the biggest problems. And this is where you have radically innovative change. And when there's something new that comes into the industry itself and you're trying to introduce it as a practice within your organization, that freaks out your employees because it's never been tested across the industry. So you'll have some employees who are like, why don't we wait to see how other companies do before we implement it as a practice in our organization? And, of course, to be a change agent, you have to be ahead of things. So you have to jump early on. You can't wait to see how well everyone else fares. You have to just do it. And this can cause a lot of problems. You'll have a lot of pushback from people who are fearful of change. So at Big Peach's department store, employees generally know that during their annual inventory that they conduct, they are required to work overnight shifts. This is an example of which of these four changes: adaptive, reactive, innovative, or proactive. It's annual inventory. So every year we do this inventory, you're required to work overnight. Is this an adaptive change, a reactive change, an innovative change, or a proactive change? The answer's on page 315. And the answer is A. And it's A. It's adaptive because it involves reinstituting a practice that the employees are already familiar with. Now, figure 10.2 in your textbook, you have Lewin's change model, and there's where you have this unfreezing, changing, refreezing, and then it goes back to unfreezing. It's this cycle that happens with change. And this is not just in organizations, this is also in, personal life. So unfreezing is where you create the motivation to change. And then you go through the changing process where there's new information and models and procedures that are now being brought on board. And then refreezing is where you support and reinforce the change. It gets locked in. It becomes embedded. And then the cycle begins all over again, right? You're now creating a new motivation to change because you're constantly bringing change within that organization. And so those are the steps. Now, Cotter came up with 8 steps for leading organizational change. And you'll notice that I bring this into our classroom earlier on in the semester. I weigh it in, and then of course, here with chapter 10. So we're going to go through those steps. The first step is, one second, make sure I didn't, okay, oops, sorry, oops. The first step is being able to establish a sense of urgency. That's the unfreeze, right? You then are going to create the guiding coalition. And that's where you're going to create this cross-functional, cross-level group where they have just enough power in order to lead change in the organization. They have to be empowered in order to lead that change. Then the step 3 is you're going to develop a vision and a strategy. And that's where that plan to help guide the change process is implemented. Then step 4 is communicating the change vision, because you have to make sure that everyone understands fully what this means. And it has to be consistently communicated throughout the process so that people are never confused as to what this change entails. Then step 5 is empowering a broad-based action. So you're going to eliminate any barriers to change. You are going to overcome the objections. You're going to use various target elements to help transform your organization and encourage your team members to be risk takers, be creative problem solvers. How can they help the situation more than how they could hinder it? Step 6 is generating short-term wins. So you're going to plan for and create any kind of short-term wins or improvements, recognizing and rewarding people who are actually contributing. So those people who are team players and who are actively involved in helping to implement change and embrace that change, you're going to recognize them and reward them for their part in that. Step 7 is you're going to consolidate your gains and produce even more change. And so using that coalition with those short-term wins, you'll create even more change. And so more people will then be brought into the change process. And then what it does, it starts to just kind of like cascade. It starts to just flow throughout the organization. And this is how you help to reinvigorate the change process, is you're constantly flowing in and bringing in more people. And think about it, anything good or bad, we have word of mouth. It has the grapevine effect. It just spreads. And so if you get people that are really love it, and they say, oh my gosh, this is great, this is so helpful, and then someone says, really? And they're like, yes. And then you get more people involved in it. Then guess what? You can then bring in more levels of change. And then this last step is to anchor new approaches in the culture. So it's reinforcing the changes by you're going to highlight the connections between the behaviors and really the behaviors that you desire and the processes that you desire, and how both those positive behaviors and processes help to lead to the various successes the organization took part in. And then from that, you'll develop various methods to make sure that there's further development in leadership, and when people are either promoted out of a position or they leave their position, that those things are still anchored within, and so it doesn't get lost and left behind, or doesn't get lost and left or taken away once that person is no longer with you, either through promotion, demotion, termination, or if somehow they pass away and they're no longer with you. So those are the 8 steps that Cotter outlined, and you can see those in your textbook on table 10.1. Now, OD. is organizational development. And these are some different techniques that you can use to implement what is considered your planned change, right? So something that you're like, this is what we're going to do, and here's the different techniques. And it allows both the people and your organization to be more effective overall. So we have change agents. Remember, I mentioned that earlier. And so it's a consultant, it's a person with a background in behavioral sciences who can actually come in and help your organization deal with the old problems, but in a new way. So how can we come in and tweak things? How can we address the issue from a different angle and be able to get a positive result out of it? So how can we use OD? We can use it with managing conflict, jump-starting and revitalizing an organization. Anytime an organization is merging with another one, how we can be able to adapt to that change of that merger. This is how OD can come in. Because a lot of times when you have a merger, you have people from one company who's like, I don't know these other people, other company, and I don't want to work with them. I don't want this new person to be my boss. I don't. What do you mean I'm being demoted? What do you mean I'm being rerouted to another department? But this is the department I've been in for 10 years. So OD can help with that adaptation. So here's the process, right? It's a 4-step process that continually goes through, just like another cycle. You diagnose the problem. You kick in with the intervention. So what are we going to do about the problem? We're going to see how well the intervention worked through our evaluation process, right? If it succeeded or it failed. And then we're going to provide feedback. How can this diagnosis be further refined? How can we narrow it down even more so? You know that there is this problem, but can we be very specific? And then you just keep going through this process until you get it very refined and a solution that can be implemented and reinforced consistently. So that's it, where you can see it close up. So Fred is an OD consultant. He comes in, he designs a survey of employee attitudes to be given to the employees at Lemon Automobile Company. And at what stage of OD is he in? Is he in the intervention, diagnosis, evaluation, or process consultation? He's designing a survey of employee attitudes that's going to be given to the employees at the company. What stage is he in? Intervention, diagnosis, evaluation, or process consultation? The answer is B. You can find that on page 321 in your textbook, right? He's diagnosing. So we're coming up with the different attitudes, and we'll then be able to see. So OD, using it to make money in a restaurant business, which is perfect, where we have this particular example. But of course, we have the example in our class of the case study that I created that allows you to see how this can be implemented there. So Eli Chayet is co-founded the Copilot Labs. It's a San Francisco restaurant where they're marketing analytics company. A restaurant marketing analytics company. And what he said was that restaurants are so focused on day-to-day business that they don't have time to grow the business, right? And remember how we talked about that over the past few weeks with our company that we're consulting, right? They're focused on so much of day-to-day, they don't have time to expand, to grow, to franchise. And so an owner might want to know which is more effective, promoting your happy hours or promoting your daily deals. So that's when a change agent would come in to evaluate your success with promoting both, and then being able to see which works best to put it into practice. Now, how effective is OD? There's multiple interventions that take place. You have the supportive management. there's a focus on both short and long term results, which is good, and um, is really affected by the culture of the organization. So, and I'll say this, and I'll keep saying this. The organization's culture is always dictated by your senior leadership. It's always dictated by that president, that CEO of the organization, and then it flows downward. So, OD is affected by that significantly. So there's two myths that we have about innovation. The first being that it happens like in this eureka moment, like, oh my gosh, eureka, I found it. It's just like, as though it just pops out of nowhere, like, hit this, you hit this little stump in the ground, and bam, oil just comes squirting out of it, and you're now a billionaire. That is false. And the second myth is that it can be systematized. And it can't. Innovation is it's creative, it's flowing, it's breathing. It's like a human. It's like a living being, right? And so it has to allow itself to just keep morphing as it goes. So there's various seeds of innovation. There's various ways in which innovation can grow and can morph. And so, of course, hard work in either a specific direction, hard work with direction change, being curious. That's the most, oh gosh, that just really, really fuels innovation, is your ability to be curious. If you allow your childlike qualities to stay as really deeply embedded in you, and remember as a child how curious you were, well, if you continue with that level of curiosity, the sky's the limit as far as innovation. And of course, wealth and money are huge. The more money you have, the more innovative you can be, because the more risks you can take, the more curious you can be, the more you can fail and start over. So that's very helpful. Necessity. If there is a need for change, a need for something innovative to come in, to disrupt, to empower, to bring opportunities, that will fuel it. And then, of course, any combination of the seeds can help with that. So let's look at the different types of innovation. We have product innovation, where there's a change in the appearance or performance of a product, or the creation of a new one. So, we're always seeing, you have version 29.4 of a product, of your phone, of an app. It's where something is, the performance is improving, or you may also see that there's a new design, or that's the reason why we have, every year there's something that different just about this coming out with a car. There's some new little thing that they've improved upon or added to a car, or they come out with a brand new car, something they never had before. So that's product innovation. Process innovation is the change in how a product is conceived, or how it's manufactured, or how you get it out to the marketplace. And so you may just, scrap an old idea and try something new. You may decide you initially were building something by hand, and now you're bringing in machines to do it. So we have our core innovations, and that's where you optimize a product or a service for your existing customer base, right? It's not for your perspective, but it's for your existing base. You're making sure that everything, all little tweaks and all the little kinks and things are out, and it's flourishing. And so your existing customers are even more satisfied. What happens is when you have satisfied customers, they tell other people, and those people become new customers. Then we have our transformational innovations, and that's the invention of some kind of breakthrough service or product that doesn't yet exist. And it's aimed at creating a brand new market with brand new customers. And, you can sit back and think of some of the products and services that weren't around. I mean, think about it. Um, Goodness. Oh. Oh, social media, right? We have our social media um, services now that, companies can hire these representatives, these consultants, or technicians or whatever, to handle all their social media. And, because they're like, we don't have anything in house, and now these people can do this. Or it's something that you actually, develop in house. You sit back and you brainstorm and you say, we're going to create a whole social media department. And well, you didn't have that before. And so now you have that. But think about the companies that created that, and now you have other companies that are hiring them to handle that service for them. They're like, we don't have time to do this. So that's a transformational innovation. So here's another question. Wendy has created a display screens um, at their drive-through windows that shows you your order and the price of your order. What type of innovation is this? Is this a product innovation, process innovation, adaptive, or reactive? Is it product, process, adaptive, or reactive? You can now drive up to any Wendy's and see your order and the price of your order before you make it to that first window to pay. The answer is on page 320 in your textbook. Celebrating failure. So this is one way that we can encourage innovation. When you have the right organizational culture, the right people in your organization, because you can have the wrong people, or the right human capital, right? This is the phrase, the catchphrase, human capital. The appropriate resources, and that could be financial, it could be physical, real property, it can be numerous technological, various resources at your disposal. And if you have the correct reward system, remember what I said earlier, is your reward system fair? Is it, skewed? Is there some kind of bias? Does it meet the needs of the people that you're rewarding? Do people even get excited about the reward system that you've implemented? So it has to have the correct reward system for the right environment, for the right people. So where you see here's a great way of breaking this down. When we talk about culture, is innovation viewed as something that benefits the organization or hinders the organization? Is it a joke? Or is it celebrated? Human capital. Do we have the right kind of people? If we have people that are constantly fighting and resisting change, that are constantly stirring up drama, those are the wrong people. Resources. Are your managers putting money where their mouths are? Are they walking the walk, or are they just talking the talk? Are they backing up what they're saying by making sure that they budget appropriately to have money that covers the things needed in order to bring about change and innovation? Rewards. Are you reinforcing experimentation in ways that actually matter? If not, then you're wasting everyone's time, and most likely there's money being wasted. So there's 4 steps for fostering innovation that you'll see on figure 10.4 in your textbook. And that's where you're able to recognize the various problems and opportunities, come up with solutions. The second step is being able to make sure you get allies within your organization to communicate your vision. There has to be someone who's your mouthpiece that's going through the organization saying, oh, this is great, this is great, this is great, this works. And then third, you're being able to overcome resistance, overcome the objections that employees have, empower them and reward them for achieving certain things, for their successes in the organization along this progressive stage. And then your fourth step is being able to execute well by effectively managing the people within your organization, effectively managing people and the teams that are responsible for implementing the change, the groups and various organizational processes, as well as all the systems that are needed in order to to bring about this innovation. So how you go about gaining your allies is by showing how the product or service can be made, how it will be made, how it's going to be beneficial, how potential customers are going to be reached, how you'll beat out other competitors, and explaining when it'll actually take place. When will this innovation actually take place? That is how you're able to help allies, or help people become your ally, help them to be able to see your vision, to feel your vision, to live your vision, and to actually go out and be the mouthpiece for you. There's 5 stages of decline, and Colin created. And you have the hubris born of success. That's stage 1. The undisciplined pursuit of more. The denial of risk and peril, grasping for salvation, and capitulation to irrelevance or death. It sounds like movie titles, right? Or book titles. But read more about the 5 stages, because literally this is how organizations eventually fail. This is how your turnover rates happen, is you kind of, it just is like a train wreck waiting to happen. And so you have this kind of arrogance, this kind of, yes. And then what happens is, because you're not disciplined, you're just constantly being greedy. You're constantly out there striving, but you're not disciplined in it. It's just kind of like the Hungry Hippo board game that you played as a kid. You're just like trying to gobble everything up. And then when you're in denial of the various risks that you and the organization faces, the risk and the potential of the company failing, the company crashing, the company going out of business, when you're in denial of it. And then when you're just trying to hold on by a thread, you're grasping for any kind of lifeline. At that point, people are getting thrown under the bus. People are being blamed for things. The house is crumbling. And then, of course, you eventually become irrelevant, or the company just dies, right? So it just happens. And those are the stages of decline. But please read more about that in the textbook. So here's some causes of resistance to change. You have your emotional behavioral response. And these can be to both real as well as imagined threats to your routine. And so you'll have people that fear kicks in. And when the fear kicks in and anxiety's in and everything's heightened, that's when you start getting various drama kings and drama queens in your organization, who then start to imagine various threats, but they also see the real threats. And sometimes the real threats can make the imagined threats even more intense. And the pushback is so intense because it spreads. Good things spread, bad things seem to spread even faster, right? And so, if you don't believe me, see how well a rumor is spread. A good rumor, somebody just had a baby, okay, a few people know, all right. And after a while, everyone's gone on. Spread a bad rumor or a negative rumor or a sad rumor that, somebody was having an affair and the spouse was, severely injured with a water hose and a bat. That is going to spread like wildfire. The story is going to go into even further. That, it wasn't just the water hose and a baseball bat. It's going to include a sledgehammer. It's just going to keep going and going. Well, that's the same kind of intensity when you talk about resistance to change. Things that were real, things that are imagined, it just gets out of control. And so there becomes pushback. So I gave you those extreme examples just to give you a view of how our emotional responses to things, how we behave, how that can impact an organization. So here's a model of resistance that you see in figure 10.5. And all of these funnel into the resistance. Your employees' characteristics, right, their personality types, if they're fear-based, all of those, factor in. The change agents' characteristics, how they are. And then, of course, the relationship between the change agent and the employee. If it is a soured, a bad relationship, it's the resistance to change is going to go even up more. So if there is a healthy relationship, that resistance to change will start to break down. The person will become more comfortable and actually embrace change. So these three factors play a major role in whether change is resisted or embraced. So here's some reasons why, and I mentioned earlier, why employees resist change. You can feel that you're going to lose your status or a sense of job security. Honestly, I don't know why people they even consider job security. No one's job is secure. Everyone is eligible for termination, right? But people, I've been on my job for 25 years. You have a sense of job security. Or I'm trying to get to 25 years. People have a fear of failure, plain and simple. People don't like to fail. It does not help that in our school systems, in our extracurricular activities at school, PE and sports, when everyone gets a medal, it embeds a culture of that I'm born to succeed. No, you're not. You're gonna fail at some point. So when you have a fear of failure, that creates resistance to change. When there is a culture and climate of mistrust, when employees don't trust managers, they don't trust senior leadership, they don't trust each other, there's going to be pushback. When you are unsure of the unknown, right? If you came into my home, I have all the lights off, and you may be hesitant to walk in because you're not sure if you're about to be ambushed. So it's the same thing. Surprise and fear of the unknown can actually, keep a person from embracing change. They're nervous, they're scared, they don't know what's around the corner, they don't know what's in the darkness. I don't know about this. And how well you are already predisposed to change. If you are not a big embracer of change to begin with, you most likely will be slow to embrace it throughout the process. We have peer pressure, right? You sit back, you listen to other folks talking and gossiping, you buy into what they say, you'll believe it. If they say that by, starting this new process, man, I already heard that from so and so in the housing department that this and this and this is going to happen. What? And we can't be involved in that. No, we can't. And then you listen and you chime in, and before long, you don't want to be involved either. Now, you never took the time to actually go and get the proper information so that you could have some actual knowledge. You just listened to what everyone else was saying and doing. Or you look around and you notice that 250 of your coworkers are refusing to play a role in it. You don't want to be the outsider. You don't want to be the outlier, so you join in because of peer pressure. Personality conflicts, that's a huge one. Poor timing, or if there's a lack of tact, right? If it's just, oh my goodness, if it's just like forced down everyone's throat, yeah, people are going to resist change. And not reinforcing your reward system. That, yeah, can definitely give you some pushback. So those are, and the other one is disruption of cultural traditions or group relationships. So if there's been some group dynamics that have formed over months or years, and that change is going to totally disrupt it. If you're going to, um, you know, move everyone into different states and they've been working together, or they're now not going to work together, or they can't work together in the same way, or if there's been various traditions that have taken place within that office or that building or in that marketplace, and now this change is going to come and disrupt that, you'll have people that'll push back. So this is the last slide for chapter 10. Make sure that you go in, you read the chapter, you really get an understanding, and you see how predisposed that you are to change. If you have not really been a big advocate, an embracer of change, ask yourself why, and see what you're willing to do to move yourself towards being more readily accepting of change, and what your organization can do to make you feel that you can trust them in that change process. So with that, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.